Preventing wildfires. That's all Smokey wants for his 70th birthday.
Addiction. It's a battle that we all struggle with at some point in our lives. When the challenges and questions of addiction are in our path, the answers and solutions are not easy to find. But in Fairfield County, Ohio, there is hope. There is help, and there is healing. Steve Rao leads us down the road to recovery.
Hello, and welcome to Road to Recovery, the show that attempts to offer hope and help and wholeness and healing for those who are struggling with addiction, or maybe a family member, a friend, a coworker, a neighbor that is on this road to addiction and is ready, willing, wanting to recover and get back to wholeness and healing. I'm Steve Rao, and we would love for you to give the Recovery Center a call, 740-687-4500, or stop by their new offices, 201 South Columbus Street in Lancaster. Also, the Pearl House sitting right next to the Recovery Center as a source of hope and help. There are others, organizations and individuals who are fighting this battle. You can get help, and there are those who want to be there to help you. One such individual is Wayne Campbell. He's the executive director of Tyler's Light, based out of Pickerington, and he's come back on the program with us. Wayne Campbell, welcome back to Road to Recovery.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having us again.
Thank you for your willingness to share. We mentioned some people curse the darkness, others light a candle to shine the light on these issues and do something positive. You had a horrific thing happen in your life, the death of your son, Tyler. How did you transition from that to say, I want to do something to help others?
We were, like any parent would have been, when it happened. It's a jolt. It's your oldest son. You've been with him for 23 years. It's part of your, when you're getting dressed every day.
Yep.
And when you lose a child, it's traumatic. You walk around, I think, in a fog, in a haze. But a group of neighbors and friends just started having meetings. I don't think there was any direction. Matter of fact, I know there wasn't any direction at the beginning. Hold a golf outing. Let's go kill all the drug dealers. All kinds of crazy ideas were on the table because, this shocked the community. This was the least likely person that would A, ever have an addiction, and B, die from an overdose in your, mid-20s. So this group got started with just some volunteers that had a passion to do something. Let's do something so it doesn't happen again.
You and I are probably in our 40s somewhere. I won't throw your number out there,
Thank you
but
very much.
I'm in my late 40s. When we were growing up, the image of the addict was sometimes a person of color in their 30s, low social connection, low economic connection. They were drinking out of a plastic bag or paper bag under a bridge somewhere.
Right.
But that's not the addict of the 21st century, is it?
That is nowhere near the addict. And you're right, as I talk to students in schools, I explain what an addict looks like to a middle-aged person. And it has changed tremendously. It is now a suburban and rural person, and especially with this opiate epidemic that we're in the middle of. Alcohol is still our biggest threat. Marijuana is right behind it. But this opiate addiction, we are losing young people to it. And they are very good students.
Right.
They're athletes.
Right.
They're raised in a two-family household. They have two cars and all the other things. This is a completely different situation.
It certainly is. And so instead of just being frustrated about it, you've chosen to do something. So you have this group of people, and they say, we got to do something. How did it progress to Tyler's Light?
There were 15, I guess, like I said, dads in a room, and, what are we going to do? And let's have some community awareness. We had a town hall meeting, and I think that started, what are we going to do? And, Pickerington is part of Fairfield County. Sometimes it doesn't look like it because it looks more like Columbus, but we held a town hall meeting, had a couple guests come in, and we had 100 or so parents and county officials show up just to explain, here's what happened, here's what this organization is, and here's what we think we're going to do. And we formed a board. But what happened is we had seen an organization, I want to say out of Marysville, Ohio, called React, and they did a video, and it was a couple young adults that had been battling addiction, and some parents have lost a child, and we thought that was very impactful. Just get a black screen, get a camera. So we invited we tried to rent some equipment, and we found a guy named Rick Green, who is a professional video producer. And he shows up at a meeting, and he was going to rent us some equipment. He realized we knew nothing about audio visual, and he helped. Well, he produced an Emmy Award-winning video that we now go into schools and talk about the dangers of drugs, and trying to create awareness and demystify some of it for them. Very good.
And this has to be difficult for you personally. Whenever you tell this story, you've got to, it is your life story, right, and you've got to go emotionally to a place that nobody ever wants to go to, but if you're going to help save a life, you have to go there. How do you deal with those effects when you're trying to save the next Tyler that may come along?
When you're in schools, you have a captive audience of 200, 500, 1,000 sometimes students. You can bring in statistics and bore them to death and they'll glaze over. You can talk as long as you want, and after a while, like anybody, you're done. You can't listen or pay attention to a person talking that long. So we have made a pretty impactful presentation with video of real life situations, talking in between, teaching points. Sometimes we'll bring in a young person that's in recovery that looks like the, again, suburban, normal educated person.
Right.
So they don't look like an addict. You won't see tattoos and all this type of stuff who
right.
we stereotype.
Correct.
So, but it has to be impactful for the students. Otherwise, you're wasting an hour of that school's time and their time. So, and what we found out when we took polls with those students before we even created a video is you have to have something that's real. And it's relevant.
Yeah.
And me connecting Tyler's life to them, that's the glue. So they follow it. There are times during a 1-hour presentation you could hear a pin drop with 1,000 kids because they're engulfed in, that could be me, or I can't believe that's Tyler's father telling us a story as opposed to a healthcare official or
Sure.
a person from the school.
Very good. Now, have you had some interactions as you are maybe sticking around as the students are leaving, or a mom or a dad come by, or a teacher come by? Tell us a little bit about some of the impact that Tyler's Light has had in that way.
That is our payback. We don't know if we're making any headway, because if we don't hear anything back, then we're spending a lot of time and money. And I do this full time now. I left corporate America to make an impact in young people's lives. So unless we have an email that comes through our website, or unless we have a teacher write a letter to us that, wow, that really impacted our group of people, we don't know. But usually after a presentation, no matter what size, there are 5-10 students that come up and they want to tell you their story, or how it's impacting them. And there are times where, unfortunately, it is their parents. So now we have a dilemma that, we're asking kids to speak up for a friend or a relative, but if your parent is the problem, and this has happened, we have 2 and now sometimes 3 generational issues where
Correct.
the parents we have a young middle schooler that the problem's at home. Who do they go to?
Yeah.
So that becomes very difficult. But yes, we get feedback on everyone, and our website's full of these. So we do. That's our payback.
Very good. I see on the bracelet you have here that says, "Speak up, save a life." What are you hoping that they will say when they speak up?
Well, for 30 years, you and I are of the age, we could tell you what the national drug slogan has been. Just say no.
Right.
Well, I think it made an impact when it first came out, but it's fallen on deaf ears. If it was that simple, we wouldn't have a drug epidemic.
Correct.
So what we're asking our youth to do, or middle-aged people, is you have a friend that you see is going too fast. They're not going to identify the problem. You will first, because you're the closest thing to them. Talk to them first, and if that usually goes with, "I got it," because they always think they have control.
Correct.
Then find somebody of authority, whether that's a parent, whether it's somebody in your school, whether it's somebody in your church. Find somebody that can now talk to this person. Now you have 2-on-1. So it makes it easier. And then we actually, if we have student A is helping student B, student A is going to do the right thing because he's already trying to look out for and get this person some help. So When that happens, then we're reaching more people. But that's a lot harder because most students, the reason they admit to ever trying something illegal or illegal drugs is peer pressure. So they buckle under peer pressure most times, and they're not strong enough to go get help themselves or admit that there's a problem. But a friend will identify it and maybe then get help for them.
Sounds to me like you're also trying to create positive peer pressure. If peer pressure is what's drawing them away, maybe if we have more people speaking up together against it, there's positive peer pressure. You seeing that?
Exactly. And we actually, follow-up that we're trying to institute in the Fairfield County Schools is a voluntary drug testing program where you get rewards for doing the right thing as opposed to having negative implications for failing a drug test. So that helps too. You reverse peer pressure. It's better to be in a club like that and get recognized in your community and your school than go the opposite way. Because right now, I think it's more popular to try and do drugs in our society.
Well, I've never heard of this concept before, but I love it. If everybody is going to, pardon the crassness, pee in a cup, right? Why don't we have everybody do that? And we'll find that the majority of people are clean, and that is the best way to go. If you are speaking to a mom or a dad, grandma, grandpa, a school teacher, a pastor, a youth leader, what would you like to say to them about how they can be used as a resource to help those who are struggling with addiction?
Well, education is the biggest thing, and we talk about that. Education awareness, that's difficult because this addiction it's very tricky, and each one is a little different. And the largest one that's affecting our communities now is the opiate addiction because, oddly enough, it's a legal drug that is starting the process. It's not an illegal drug.
Right.
This is the first time this has ever happened, and there are a lot of studies and books being written, but it started in our state in the late 90s when the government and the medical industry changed how we deal with pain. We now treat chronic pain with narcotics. Before that, you had to have a broken bone, cancer, surgery called acute pain. There's where the change happens. You and I are too old. We made it through our middle, 20s before this happened. Now, our young kids are exposed to legal drugs that are highly addictive, and they're prevalent. They're everywhere.
Yeah, we've got to get the word out, and you're helping to do that. If folks would like to get a hold of you to share or to get a hold of Tyler's Light, what's the best way for them to do that?
It'd be just go to our website at www.tylerslight.com, and we've had several hits, 800,000 hits. People come to our website looking for help, and we have resources there. We are not a treatment facility. We are education and awareness, but we can lead you to treatment centers, whether it be Fairfield County, whether it be in Central Ohio, Florida. It doesn't matter where. We have outside resources. But what we found with the opiate epidemic is it takes a long time. Leaving home is a necessity to go get treatment, and you didn't get there overnight, so sometimes it's going to take a while. And there are a lot of very nice faith-based programs out there called Teen Challenge, called The Refuge, that are working, but they're long-term commitments. But again, the addiction started, it took a while to get there.
No question about it. Thank you for your willingness to come on and share. Thank you for being a light to our community through a very tragic thing in your life and the life of your family. We trust that you will continue to work through that grieving process and use Tyler's Light as a resource in that way. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks for having us on.
You're welcome. That's Wayne Campbell. He's the executive director of Tyler's Light, and you can get more information by going to tylerslight.com. You can also contact the Recovery Center, 740-687-4500, or stop by and see them at 201 South Columbus Street in downtown Lancaster. Join us next time as we continue to journey down the road to recovery.
These waters were woven into the culture of Native American tribes. The descendants of the early Europeans built a business here based on agriculture. And today, This unique destination in the central Ohio countryside comes to life with stories and memories centuries old. The Fairfield County Historical Parks invites you to amazing Rock Mill. Above the falls of the Hocking River Gorge, here together, nature and man have created some truly American stories that you'll want to experience with the entire family. Visit us or learn more about Rock Mill and the largest wooden water wheel in the nation at historicalparks.org.